Hello and welcome back to Aintree Angles, Day 2 preview at the Grand National meeting, brought to you by oddschecker in association with William Hill, where later we'll be joined by Grand National winning jockey Barry Geraghty. But first, I am joined by Andy Holding and Toby Loveridge once again. Andy, yesterday was really a Willie Mullins domination, the first 4 Grade 1 wins.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, spectacular start to the meeting for them. 1 or 2 unexpected, but the market certainly favoured quite a few of them, even more so obviously when all those horses were winning left, right and centre. Lossiemouth almost went off favourite in the end, such as the swell of opinion for their horses. Yeah, it was just a magical day, wasn't it? Lots of good quality racing, not too many outlandish shocks, but the best selection of the day was courtesy of my man on my right, who managed to find the biggest prize winner of the day, 22-1, Geraghty Bourne. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, that was quite something, actually. That was tipped off after we were at the oddschecker Grand National trial. We saw it run there, finished second really quite nicely, and then hated the ground at less than the time after. So good selection for me, good selection for a couple of boys as well. So we're flying.
Yes. And we'd like another 22-1 winner. If not, you're not on for the third day.
That's true. That's true. I'll try my best.
We'll kick off in the 145. It is the mild main novices chase. Grade 1 just over 3 miles, Andy. Handstands, that they decided to miss the Cheltenham Festival and come straight here. Will they be rewarded?
Quite possibly, yeah. I mean, as we saw yesterday with Impede Pass winning the first race, I'm not suggesting that for 1 minute that's going to happen all the time, but horses that came here fresh, specifically for this meeting, just maybe had a slight edge in certain instances, and I thought that was the case with him. I think it's a fascinating race. You could give so many horses a chance in this. I haven't had a bet in it, and I haven't put anything up in my column. I really do hope the Handstands wins. I know the connections of this horse, and they've always thought the world of him. His victory last time out at Sandown was outstanding. Obviously beating subsequent Arca winner Django Bay, who ran really well here yesterday. So you can't really poke holes in him form-wise. He will stay the trip because he's won over 3 miles before. I think if you're being overly critical, not necessarily of him, but of the conditions today, I think in an ideal world, he'd probably want slightly softer ground.
Yeah.
He's won on good ground before. I think he won his bumper on goodish ground. He won over hurdles on good ground. And he was going okay when he fell first time out in the Rising Stars at Wincanton. Although I don't think he probably would have won that day, but he might have finished third behind Soul Icon. So if you're looking to take him on, you have got little crumbs here, there and everywhere to suggest he might be vulnerable. They're going to go a good gallop here, aren't they, Steve?
Yeah.
Corwald Potter's bound to lead. He put in a jumping clinic, didn't he, when he won at Cheltenham? He was absolutely spectacular. If he stays the trip, and that's the $64,000 question with him, then obviously he's a player. And there's been good money for Dancing City, probably more to do with the fact that Mullins had such a good day yesterday. Let's say if only 2 of those Mullins horses would have won, I think we'd be standing here doing this recording looking at probably 5-1 for Dancing City. We'd all be saying, oh yeah, the ground's too fast for him. He ran badly at Cheltenham. All of a sudden he's a 5-2, 11-4 poke, just because I think Mullins has had 4 winners, not necessarily on what he's done on the form book as such over fences. So it's a trappy one. Like I say, I haven't had a bet. I'll be hopeful for connections that Handstands wins. I suppose that's where my heart is. So I'd probably just favour him, but not with any degree of confidence at all.
Yeah, if you do fancy Handstands, William Hill are currently boosting from 9-4 out to 5-2. You can also lengthen the odds. Handstands to win by over 3 lengths is a special on the William Hill app, out to 9-2. And they are also top price guarantee in this race as well. Toby, who'd you like?
Form from everywhere, isn't there, really? There's handicap form, there's Grade 1 form, there's a bit of Irish stuff in there. I think the Mullins battalion will be really keen on Dancing City again. Obviously, won the Sefton last year here. Yeah. You look for horses to come alive in the spring, don't you? And I think this is the sort of horse that will do that. Slightly disappointing at Cheltenham last time, but he had the same, it was third, wasn't he, at Cheltenham before coming here last year and winning. I wouldn't put anyone off it, but I'm not sure I'd have a bet. I think I'm going to watch the race. But one at a bigger price that I will put up that I'm quite interested is Jordan's. I don't see the difference in his form to some near the top of the market, to be honest, particularly from a handicap point of view. Second behind Impero Pass 2 times ago. Slightly disappointing in the plate last time, finished 5th, but I think that's a good enough prep run almost to go and get a job done here. I think to run into a place at 20-1, I think is a lively outsider.
I'd put him up in the plate.
Yeah.
And I was amazed that he finished 5th because he jumped pretty baller.
Yeah.
He looked obviously in a big field. I think the 3 miles will actually help his jumping. but at the same time, he will need to operate better over these fences, and there's no hiding place there with Corwell Potter. So I think that's the part of his game that he's slightly vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of gone through a few doubts around some of the horses. I'd chuck another one in. I quite like the Changing Man. If you look back, the Ultima has actually been quite a good guide for this race. Holywell in the past has won the Ultima and won this race. You then look back last year, Chianti Classico won the Ultima and finished fourth here. Now, at the point, I was quite disappointed with him. But if you look back at the form, it was, I know where you're thinking, Hartwood, Iroko. So it was a really strong race. So the fact that the Changing Man finished second at the Ultima at the Cheltenham Festival and comes here, rather than going the handicap route tomorrow, I'm quite interested in, and currently at the time of recording, he's outsider of the field at 18-1. So the Changing Man probably be more likely to place than win, but with doubts around, especially the ground towards the head of the market, that's the way that I would be heading in this race. We'll then move on to the 220. It's the William Hill handicap hurdle over 2.5 miles. Andy, I'm quite amazed that Kopek Demi is favourite for this race, having blown out in the Martin Pipe last time.
Yeah, he was probably one of the gambles of the whole meeting, wasn't he? From an anti-post perspective, anyway. I think he ended up going off 5-2. But if you'd backed him, you're never ever comfortable thinking, "Oh, I've got a squeak here," and he faded into obscurity. Again, you've got to perhaps have a little bit of a bit of imagination or a bit of a forgiving nature to get with him again today. You look at some of the Mullins horses yesterday; they did improve quite significantly, particularly Mercia, who managed to find 10 lengths somewhere with Put Your Hands Together. So it is possible, but at 6-7-1, I wouldn't be so sure. One or two people like Be Aware. Again, I was a bit disappointed with him for a 3-1 favourite in the Cold Cut. Yeah. I think you be wanting more from him. I think Impose Etoile will confirm that form.
Yeah,
I think he's really solid each way. By the way, if you fancy Impose Etoile, couldn't put you off him.
Yeah.
I've gone for a couple of real outliers in this for big prices. I was quite keen on a race at Uttoxeter, actually, funny enough, after the Cheltenham Festival. It was won by a horse called Hidden Heroics, one of Dan Skelton's, who looked very well handicapped, and they punted him quite strongly, and he won, got the job done. But his time figure is very good. Interesting, the last circuit was 15 lengths quicker than the other two hurdle races on the card, and there were both 130 horses who won those. So I think the winner's quite good. And Wellington Arch and Blenkinsop ran in that, and they finished second and third respectively. They're right down the foot of the weights. I probably wouldn't want Wellington Arch to be going eyeballs out as he was so much at Uttoxeter, because round here, as we saw yesterday, front runners tend to get gobbled up in the straight here on the hurdle track, funny enough. Not so much on the chase track. But I think he's still quite well handicapped. And that Blenkinsop, I mean, he was on a right roll a couple of years ago. Obviously, had a bit of an injury, off the track for a long time, needed his first run, and he really caught the eye when he came home strongly at Uttoxeter. He's back on his favourite good ground. He seems to be better over 2.5. He didn't say 3 in a Grade 1 here a couple of years back. So I just thought, like, he was 40-1 or 33-1 yesterday. I thought he was worth a few quid. But yeah, wide open race. You could fancy another 3 or 4. And I probably haven't even named the winner, but those are the two I've gone for on my column anyway.
Yeah. Toby, you get an extra place with William Hill in this. You get 5 places on this race. You're not going to need it, though, are you? You're going to put in a nice big price winner again.
I tend to look at these races and think there's some at the foot of the market here that shouldn't be at the foot of the market. I think Blenkinsop being one of them. I think he's a class horse. He's a massive great thing, though, isn't he? I'm not sure if that good ground will... Anyway, I fancy one right at the bottom off the jewellery of Alan King's. Maxwell rides, which is always a bit of an interesting conundrum, isn't it? In this, but I can't see much wrong with it. He was second in the EBF final at Sandown at 20-1, and he's 131. 11 stone as a 6-year-old, a bit of an improver. Clearly, he wasn't laid out for Cheltenham. I mean, he wants to go at Aintree instead. Probably wants the ground, I would have thought. But at 20-1, I'm going to take all those places and have a go on that.
I mean, he puts Mr. Megget in here off 130, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And I think he's a Grade 1 horse. Well, he's in the Grade 1, isn't he, later on, with a big chance. And although he wasn't good enough to beat him, he beat some decent horses, Kepler's Law and was it Glinsbury or whatever it's called, the thing of Twist and Davis. It's strong form, that. Yeah. Very good time as well. So off that form, he's got to have a chance. He's one of the only few horses with track form.
Yeah, I've napped him in the paper as well off the jury. So, 22-1 at the time of recording with William Hill. So, yeah.
Sorry, stole your thunder there, Steve.
No, you're absolutely fine. For all the reasons you've said, second to Mr. Megget at the course, and that EBF final always works out. And if you go back and watch that race, I know he was mugged late on by Lawrence Bay, but he'd in theory won the race. And I think quite a lot of the JP horse that finished third that day as well, I still think he's well handicapped. I think he's well overpriced. in that race, so that's off the jury. We'll then move to the 255. It's the top novices hurdle, a Grade 1. Stable form is the thing here, isn't it, Andy? Romeo Coolio, I think looking at it, Gordon Elliott is 1 from 39, and that winner, I think, was the 22nd of March. So there are question marks around the stable form, but he's currently 6-4 at the time of recording. William Hill are boosting him to 13-8 currently at the time of recording. I mean, on the back of his third in the Supreme, if Gordon Elliott fired in 3 winners yesterday, he'd be what, 4-6 instead?
On form, he is a genuine, strong favourite, even money or 4-5, whatever you want to call it. Being a time man, we've got a lot of evidence to suggest that the best race of the meeting at the festival was the Supreme Novices Hurdle. Andy Baker does our numbers. He's absolutely bob on with his novices, his ratings. And that was the best Supreme run since Constitution Hill beat John Bon. And we know how good Constitution Hill's gone on to be. There's no reason to doubt Kopek de Board being a top-class horse next season. At what trip and what discipline, I don't know where he'll go, but he's going to be good, as is William Money. And Romeo Coolio represents that form line. I think he was a bit unlucky in the sense that I think Connections were probably hoping that Workaday would take him into the race a little bit further. He kind of was left with his chin hanging out a little bit at the top of the hill. I know they wanted to ride him positive like they did Leopard, but not necessarily in that way. And Kopek ended up outstaying him, but he did keep on quite well to finish respectable third. He's definitely the one to beat in all known form, times, form, the track. But yeah, the Elliott form is a worry. It's enough to put me off probably backing him at, what is it, 6-4? 6-4. I'd love to get with him because I desperately want to stay loyal to the Supreme Novices. Flipping it on its head, if you didn't want to go down that route and think, well, I can't trust the Elliott horses, would you go with Salvatore Mundi? Who, when I watched that race back again last night, I actually thought, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He actually run a lot better than I thought he did at the time. He was rank keen in the first half a mile, so much to the point where Patrick just almost thought, right, we're not going to win this. Our chance is gone, but I'm going to educate him and I'm going to ride him to get home. So that middle part of the race, he just kind of like accepted what was going to happen. And then from the top of the hill, turning for home and up the hill, he actually picked up quite nicely. Interesting, they've took the hood off of him.
Yeah.
Maybe they're thinking he's just been too keen because of the hood or whatever. I think the better ground will definitely suit him. He's got a lot of speed. And if he does settle, and that's a $64,000 question with him, with Townend on, given the form that Mullins horses, he actually could be the one out of the Supreme that ends up being the surprise package. And there's been a hell of a lot of money for him. He's now vying for second favouritism with Tripoli Flyer, who's a really good, strong contender on this ground. So I haven't had a bet, but it wouldn't surprise me if Salvatore Mundi was to do what Mercier did yesterday.
Before we get into the Melon Chase preview, Toby, William Hill offers for today.
Yeah, we've got a Bet 10 Get 60 again until 2 p.m. today, until just after that first race. So if you do want to take advantage of that, make sure you do. As Steve's already mentioned, there are boosts and lengthen your odds offers that exist on the app. So please do check them out.
And William Hill currently are boosting John Bon. 4-7 out to 8-13 in the Melling Chase. He faces only 3 rivals, Toby. Are you going to forgive him his Champion Chase defeat?
Am I going to forgive him his Champion Chase defeat? I think a lot was discussed after that race and after the Cheltenham Festival starts, wasn't there? And the fact that he got his nose caught on the starting tape. Do I think that's had a real effect on his race? Maybe, because he is the sort of horse that needs to be ridden forward. I think even today, Matata is going to go. It's going to go hell for leather. He's going to get a lead. Does he want a lead? I don't know how they're going to ride him today, because I think this race is going to cut up massively. I think Matata is going to go out and get 5 or 6 lengths, and everything's going to fall back into his lap. I don't know. Are they going to hold him up? I don't know. I'm not actually going to have a bet in the race, but I'm going to hope that the good ground allows Matata to stay at least in the first couple for an each way spot. But I'm fascinated by this and how it's going to play out.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a conundrum, this race. I haven't got a strong opinion on it.
No, I've got no inclination of a bet in it either. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how the dynamics play out. John Bon wants the lead. That's where he's most comfortable. He doesn't want his rhythm disrupted. That's why I think this track really suits him, rather than Cheltenham. In contrast, Matata, who would ordinarily like to lead, most of his best form in the past is when he's led. He actually, I thought, ran his best career number and performance when he wins have been held up.
Yeah.
Unexpected party made the running that day, and he was given a little bit of a chance, bit of a breathing behind. He absolutely sprinted clear of him. They tried to make the running with him last time out in the game spirit, and he ended up getting beat. So will they take a lead off John Bon with Matata? I don't know. So it's going to be a fascinating watch, but that's what I'm going to be doing, just watching.
Definitely. I'm sure you have a strong opinion, though, in the next race, which is the Topham. You can get an extra place with William Hill, 6 places, obviously back over the Grand National fences.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've gone up and down this race for weeks, days, and I finally come round to a couple that I thought might run quite well. Marble Arch, one of them.
Yeah.
Bit of a soft spot for him. I won't say he's becoming a cliff horse, but I've got my sort of parachute on my back, just ready for the takeoff. Musselburgh didn't suit him last time. He just didn't like those tight bends. He made a couple of mistakes, got out of position, but he ran quite well to be 5th behind Kaluki Kid. But I think this galloping track will suit him better. He's got some good form at Newbury, I've noticed. An air going left-handed. He's got some cracking figures when the ground's good. I thought he'd run well.
Yeah.
And I like Chantreuse as well. Again, similar to Elliot. I put up one of theirs yesterday, Folks Tiara, and he was really flat. Some of those De Bromhead horses are not all that strong at the moment. But he was unlucky in the race last year. He was cantering the one going away from Valentine's, and he jumped it okay, but he sprawled on landing. And he ended up getting back into the race and almost looking like he might be a player again, 2 out. So he's got the ability to win here in the engine. But yeah, the De Bromhead horse is just a little bit of a concern. But anyway, look, I've gone with those 2 at sort of 16 to 1 the pair. So there you go. Those are my 2 for what it's worth.
Yeah, Marble Sands currently 18 to 1 at the time of recording.
Okay.
William Hill. Toby, have you?
I really like this race, and there's loads that I fancy. I'll probably end up back in the whole field by the time it goes off. It's a conundrum, isn't it? Because we've got a couple of that run over the fences before, a couple of that have run at Cheltenham and the cross-country fences, so we know that there's going to be good jumpers in here. There's a couple of question marks over a couple of the others that very talented horses, but will they go and jump the fences? I know they're not as hard as they used to be, but I've sided with Late Night Pass because I actually think that run behind Stumptown is going to end up being really good form come Saturday afternoon when we go and see him romp home. So, yeah, really keen on that. And obviously going to deal with the fences, and there's no question marks over trip or anything. If I'm going to have a bet, I want to make sure that my horse is going to cross the line and give me a decent run, and I think he will.
Excellent. And then we move on to the 440. It's the oddschecker Sefton Novices Hurdle, Grade 1. Ran over 3 miles. Calafé en Vol is currently favourite and is boosted from 4 to 1 out to 9 to 2. Toby, I'll come to you. Who do you fancy in this?
Can I just say, I've been looking forward to this race for months and months and months since we did the deal with the Jockey Club, and having branding here today, having a sponsored race here, having some clients here today, I'm buzzing for this. And come 440, I think everyone else will, hopefully, as well. It's turned out to be a really good race.
Really good race.
Which is
rewarded with a good field.
Rewarded with a big field as well, which this often attracts. But good ground. These novices are obviously going to come and have a go here. But at the top of the market, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got some that are you don't know that much about Calafé en Vol yet, do you? You don't know what he's going to become. Obviously, good in the Sydney Banks, but is that good enough for him to go and win a Grade 1 here? Maybe. I'm keen on a horse called Moon Rocket that I followed through. It's, again, a bit of my cliff horse, really, but followed throughout the season. Second in the River Don, and thought was potentially going to go and win that day. Second again behind Battleboard Lad last time at Haydock on what I think ground will not quite suit this horse. And I think the drying ground is going to help him out a little bit as well. I think he's class. Will he win? I'm not sure, but I think he'll be there in the frame in the end.
Yeah, if you're a trends man, Moon Rocket, the age is against him. It's 18 of the previous 19 winners were aged either 6 or 7. But obviously trends there to be broken. 20 of the previous 24 winners had won at least twice over hurdles, which is a negative for Mr. Mega Andy. It's a horse that has a huge amount of potential, but obviously won over hurdles here, and we haven't seen him since.
Yeah, it stinks as like he's had some kind of issue. I can't believe that they've laid him out for this race specifically. Missed the whole season since he won here in November. Yeah, that doesn't make sense with a good horse like that. But they've minded him, and obviously being owned by the Hemminses, then the tradition to run him here is obviously a big pull. He couldn't have won any easier when he beat off the jury here back early in the season. He was brilliant that day. The time figure was very good as well. He comes out second on our numbers, so he's definitely got the quality to win this if he stays. But I like Calafé en Vol.
Yeah.
I actually do think the Sydney Banks is a good piece of form. They
Yeah.
went a good gallop that day. Jax Jr. didn't hold back. He absolutely lashed it round there.
Yeah.
And he needed to stay well. And he only just won because of his stamina. I mean, he was a busted flush turning for home. He was the first of the front three off the bridle, and he stayed on really powerfully over 2.5. He's crying out for 3 miles. He's run behind the new line at Newby, suggested the same. And Henderson's got a really good record in this race.
Yeah.
I think he would have beat that champ, and there's another one as well that he won it with.
Yeah, he's won 3 of the previous
3
10.
of the previous 10. So he knows the kind of horse
Yeah.
that it takes to win this race. He's actually my nap of the day.
Yeah.
Just because I really like him. Whatever happens to him today, he's also I'm going to follow next season.
Yeah, I was on Jax Jr. that day in the Sydney Banks, and I thought, yeah, we've got Calafay involved with it, and he just stayed on really strongly, which I didn't think he had him in it at the time.
No.
I thought I had him down as a bit of a weak finisher when he finished behind the new line, but completely changed my opinion on him that day. So
he just didn't have the pace of the new line in retrospect, did he?
No, and yeah, that's no bad thing. And then the final race of the day is the 5:15. It's a handicap hurdle over 2 miles, big field, extra places with William Hill. You've got 5 places. Andy, I think you're a fan of Celtic Dino, aren't you?
I was almost going to tip this singly, and in the end, I wouldn't say I bottled it, but I do like Jack Hind as well, so I had to put up both in my column. But Celtic Dino is definitely the number one of the two.
Yeah.
Hugely impressed with him early on the season when he won at Wincanton. Clocked a phenomenal time. I thought, God, this is a graded horse. He went and won at Ascot. Then they have run him in graded races, but the ground's gone against him. That's the only problem when you get a graded horse that wins on fast ground early on in the season. Where'd you go with them?
Yeah.
They ran him even the Formby, ran really well, but the ground was soft. They ran him next time out at, where was it? He finished third the last day. Kempton.
Yeah.
Wasn't quite as bad as it was at Aintree, but it was still winter soft ground.
Yeah.
But once again, he performed admirably in a grade 2. So he's got graded form. He comes back here in a handicap. He's run at the track. They almost gave him a sighter here in the Formby. The faster the ground, the better. By the last race, the ground's going to be rattling quick. He's going to be one of the few in the field that will absolutely love the ground.
Yeah.
Not just be okay on it. He will love it, relish it. He's got a good lad on him as well, Dylan Johnson.
Yeah.
He's nicely handicapped. They've took the top one out.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, lump sum, who had top weight. I think he's got 10-13, hasn't he, Celtic Dino?
Yeah.
So all the stars align for him. I think he'll go a favourite. And the other one I've backed is Jack Hind, because I think he's on the improve, and his best 2 runs have been on a flat track at Southall, similar to this. And he'll relish a strongly run race.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be stunned if Celtic Dino doesn't run well.
Yeah, he's 4-1, and they've also done a boost on the William Hill app. Celtic Dino to finish in the first 4. It's boosted from 10 to 11 to even money. Toby, quickly to you. Who do you fancy?
Whenever you see a Tony Martin horse, it gives you shivers, doesn't it? Especially when it's been backed to the way it is. I have just seen it's drifted a little bit though, but it was 9s into 5s I saw, and it's drifting again. But a horse that has been backed a little bit overnight was a horse that finished second in the Moor Battle behind Cracking Rhapsody last time. Really solid form on good ground, Alderman.
Yeah.
£5 claimer on board, only went up £3 that day, so it's essentially £2 well in as well on that form as well. So I really fancy the horse, and I think he'll go on the ground as Celtic Dino will.
Excellent. If I come back to you, best bet of the day?
Best bet of the day. Probably that one, actually. Probably Alderman. I really like that race that day, and it always works out quite nicely. Not quite the race it was a couple of years ago, the Moor Battle, but yeah, I fancy this because I know it'll go on the ground. Yeah,
12-1 at the time of recording with William Hill. Andy, I imagine yours is in the Sefton?
Calafay Devaux.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the, obviously, oddschecker sponsored race. Got to stay loyal to that.
Yeah, Calafay Devaux, 4-1 at the time of recording. And mine, we're gonna go for a Toby Loveridge special. We're gonna go in the 220. And my best bet is going to be off the jury at 22-1. So I'm delighted to now be joined by Grand National winning jockey Barry Geraghty. Barry, you won it on Monty's Pass in 2003. Great memories of the day?
Brilliant memories. Yeah, 22 years ago. Sure, you grow up dreaming of riding in the Grand National. You know, you dream of winning it. I never thought for a second it would happen as easy as it did anyway, or even let alone happen. Magic, brilliant day, jumped brilliantly. I had a dream run round, and he hacked up.
Yeah, obviously you finished 4th in the year after. Do you think, obviously Iron Maximus is now bidding to go back to back? Do you think he'd have the sort of quality in order to do it?
I think he has. For Monty's Pass, the ground was just too slow to follow. When you're here on a great race, to be fourth, would have been closer on better ground. Not saying he'd have won, but I don't see any reason why Iron Maximus won't come back. He's every chance. But I wonder what you think, Andy. I think there's, to me, is there more depth in this year's race than last year?
It seems to be, yeah. You got a horse like Hewick in there, and Iroko looks
Yeah.
a quality horse, proper grade 1 horse. Yeah, it looks a tougher task. Just going back to Monty's Pass, how happy were you that Gunnar Welburn kept going as long as he did? Because when you jump the ditch, the 19th on their second circuit, you're almost jumping in front there, and you're thinking, Christ, I need to take a pull here. And Gunnar Welburn then kept going all the way across to the Melling Road and just allowed you to literally to just tuck in behind him.
And that's how it was. Going away from the stands, even with a circuit to go, like the plan was, delay it as long as possible, because he was a doubtful stayer. He didn't get the 2 mile 6 in the Galway Plate. Very stiff 2-6 uphill finish, but he didn't finish. So I'm going away from the stands here with just going Welburn in front of me, and I'm thinking, oh no, this isn't part of the plan. But it's happening, and he's winging and he's flying. But I'm always trying to keep him back. But thankfully he did keep going and just give me something that could take a lead off. And when he jumped to the front, I'm only going through the motions because I don't want to commit. I just want to keep galloping. I don't need to do anything fancy here. Just contain him and finish.
You had a loose horse in front of you as well, didn't you? But you're glad to see him run off to the left.
Yeah, well, you're always happy. When you're going around the Grand National, you're taking in so many things.
Yeah.
Fences, the atmosphere as well, but loose horses, opposition, your own horse, how he's jumping, where you want to be, the decision making just in those seconds. I promise you will never experience anything like it in a regular race, but then the Grand National's on another level.
Yeah. Amazing memories. Amazing.
We won't do a full recap of obviously yesterday. The big talking point was obviously Constitution Hill. Your connection with the horse obviously fell for a second time in a row. What are your thoughts around it and kind of his future going forward?
It was really disappointing. He had jumped really well through the race. He came up a little bit long at the last with a circuit to go, but Nico had taken him back on approach to that. So what he actually did wasn't an unnatural thing, because Nico was doing the right thing. Come back, don't roll forward. And the horse got to the point, he said, no, I'm okay to do it. And he did it. But the second last, he was just a little bit like Cheltenham. He was just blasé and casual. And, it's very easy to criticise the jockey. But for me, I don't know what Nico could have done differently. He sat where he sat through the race. He was non-committal, if you like, with the pace, which was the right thing to do with the 2 mile horse. He was on the speed horse. So he got bunched, if you like, and he got shuffled back. But then he switched back out and he gets a run through. So to me, he was giving the horse at that point the best chance of winning by riding him for speed, not for stamina.
Yeah.
If he rode him as a pacemaker for Lossiemouth, it was only going to serve to horse strengths. And if he did that and he jumped home and he finished and got beaten, we'd say, Nico, what were you thinking? But what he did was he took him back, and he had no choice in taking him back, but he did, and he was there to use his speed if he was good enough. And he just was blasé again, as he was at Cheltenham. So, it's just unfortunate. And, you feel desperate for everyone, Nicky and Michael Buckley, everyone involved. But it is horse racing. It's one of those things. He's got a little bit blasé over the last couple of years. He needs to sharpen his act. I wouldn't be surprised if he jumps a fence in the coming weeks, just to get his brain switched on and thinking, this isn't just a playground. I have to, mind my P's and Q's.
Yeah, they rode him tight on the bend, didn't they? But there was a gap there for him if to jump into.
We could see, we watched the race together, and it was like watching those horror movies where you knew when the zombie was going to fall out of the closet. You could see Nico was going to get trapped in, and I think Paul Townend quite cleverly, cutely, could see it as well. And he thought, right, he's going to get stuck there. If I go here, I'm going to get 2 lengths here. And then I think that was just a cute bit of race riding. I don't think it was necessarily a massive, negative for Nico, because like I say, he was there. That was just unfortunate.
But if Nico had committed before the turn in, committed to hold his position and to get out, if he panicked and did that, that was completely throwing your race out the window.
Yeah.
So, when you're beating it or you're on the ground, you'll always do it differently, no matter what. So I think it's very easy to judge and criticise, but it's very hard to pinpoint and say, oh, that would have made the difference.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it would. And the horse has to take responsibility for that part of his jumping. There's very little you can do to contain a horse when they're letting fly early, because the more you do, the more of an inclination you're giving them it's time to go. So, it's a tricky one. The horse just needs to cop on and show a bit of respect for his jumps.
Yeah, and towards the end of your career, you had a great association, obviously, in the green and gold of JP McManus. I'll just touch on a couple of the races that he's obviously then well represented in today. The 220 is the William Hill handicap hurdle. 2 at the top of the market, Kopek to me and Impostoir. But are you with either of those, or do you have a different fancy for the rest?
Well, Kopek to me, there's forgiveness needed for for Cheltenham.
Yeah.
Did run keen, didn't jump amazingly, but was well beaten. But the vibes are strong, I gather, judging by the market. They were very strong going into Cheltenham as well. There was a lot of word, but as I say, there's a bit of forgiveness and you're taking on trust. Where Impotois ran a brilliant race for me, behind Jimmy Desai. Probably got involved early enough over the second last. It didn't make the difference in winning and losing, but I think there is a little bit more in him. Now, he has a good bit of weight with 12 stone, so I think one definitely with a chance. But one I like, for an Aintree player, Steel Alley. He's ultra consistent and brilliant on these flat tracks. I think if he settles over this trip, he could be involved.
Yeah, currently 14-1 at time recording with William Hill. Dylan Johnson could have a good day. Obviously has a good ride on Celtic Dino later on as well. And then a lot of the talking points around the champion chase was obviously the mistake by John Bon. He's odds on favourite currently to win the Melling chase for a second year in a row. What are your thoughts on that one?
He should be very hard to beat. Now, he was unlucky what happened in Cheltenham between the start, and the start put him in a bad position, I'd suppose. And when you're trying to get into the position you want to be in and you're asking the question maybe that you wouldn't have had to needed to ask had you been in a better position at the start, that fence caught him out. Obviously, he did well to finish second, but judge this race on its own against Protectorat, El Fabiola, who is, it'd be a Lazarus performance for him to come back, and Matata. So, Protectorat's beaten 20 lengths behind Fact to File. If John Bon reproduces any of his form, and I think he's going to get the run of the race through, because I'd imagine Dan is going to be looking at prize money. He's not going to ride. No. I would have thought he won't ride Protectorat forward, hassle John Bon, because it could cost him. So I'm sure they'll be happy to try and secure second and hope that he can do better. So no, I think John Bon will be very hard to beat. But the interesting part of that race for me is, so you have Protectorat sit second or third with El Fabiola. Matata, who can front run, but I think is better with cover.
Yeah.
Will he drop in, stepping up over trip? Could he come through and pick up the pieces?
That's what we thought, yeah. We've discussed this race as well. That's the dynamic that we see. Because Matata kind of like, he's going to get his chin left hanging out if he tries to make all the running, like he did in the Game Spirit over this trip.
Yeah. He can't.
Yeah. The one way to maximise his place potential is to ride him like they did when he won at Windsor.
Yeah, if you run, but even ride him colder.
Yeah.
You drop him out last, put him asleep. He is better with a lead. I think he's done better when he gets the choke out. He burns himself up. But if you were to ride him cold, ride him last, and ride him to be placed, I think he could pick up the pieces.
Yeah. But John Bon, the selection for Barry Geraghty, currently boosted to 4-6 with William Hill at the time of recording, and to win by over 5 lengths is now out to 7-4. And then lastly, oddschecker proudly sponsor the Sefton Novices Hurdle today. It's a really big field, 7-2 the field at the time of recording. Who's your fancy in that?
Yeah, I like Gordon's horse, Jacobs Creek.
Yeah.
It wasn't a vintage race, the Grade 3 he won in Naas, but for me it was the style and how he won it. He dropped in early, he crept into it, but how he finished, that was heavy ground. I think he's going to relish the trip.
Yeah.
I thought he had a squeak if he had gone for the Albert Bartlett. So yeah, he's a horse I think who's on the up.
You've rode quite a few winners in this race for Nicky Henderson. I think beat that, and perhaps Champ.
Beat that.
Yeah.
Champ, I broke my leg in the race beforehand. I won it on Sackville about 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Iris's Gift, did he win it?
He did.
I think he did, yeah.
He did. Because I quite like Nicky's horse in that Calify and Voe.
Yeah.
He's a bit inexperienced, but I just really like him. I think he's going to be a nice horse going forward.
I'd agree with you, but to me, it's one of those races where you haven't just got the standout form. You have lots of potential form. He's one of them, and he could. But it's funny for me, the difference in the 2 mile track and the 3 mile hurdle track. There is a good bit of pace involved in the 2 mile track, where the 3 mile can turn into a slog, because when they get racing, if they get racing down the back straight and you turn into straight and you've the best part of half a mile to go and tongues are wagging, it takes a lot of getting. So that's why I fancy Jacobs Creek, because Hopper's there. But it's a trappy race, because I don't think you have a lot of unexposed horses with potential.
Can I pick up on one point you just made there as well? We've noticed it, and I've noticed that over the last few years here. There seems to be a bit of a difference in styles of run styles with the winners, particularly on the hurdle track. It seems to be best advantage just slightly off the speed on the hurdles track, but on the chase track it just seems to prefer, like Sambury late yesterday, horses actually on out in front. Is that to do with obviously jumping, getting them in rhythm? You're better off out in front over the chase track, perhaps the tighter in the track. But on the hurdles track it seems to be unforgiving on front runners. They tend to come back to you.
Well, I agree with you completely. obviously the inside track being the chase track, it's sharper. You have more fences as well. The fences are on the rail too, so it's a little bit claustrophobic for the horse in behind. They can't maybe force the issue as much as they might like. If you can dictate a little bit in front, I think you get it very easy on the chase track. Big fences around here too. They're proper tests. Hurdle track then the opposite. You know, you have less hurdles on the circuit, but a bigger circuit. So yeah, it's easier for horses to get competitive, push the pace, get racing early in the back straight. They're a little bit chalk and cheese.
Yeah, it is funny. Just like I say, something we noticed yesterday.
Yeah, it is. And lastly, we obviously touched on your Grand National memories, but if I had to get one selection for you for the big race for tomorrow,
I think Iroko is the best handicapped horse in the race. But I think there is layers and layers and layers of Grand National potential in there with so many horses. I've been giving Brave Man's Game a shout, but I was into it on my own, so I'm beginning to go cold on that idea. Vanillier, I thought was in much better form this year than he was last year, and he was a good second year before that.
Revitalised by blinkers, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that there's juice in him. Three-card Bride could be of interest. You could pick any of 15, I think.
We could sit here for another half an hour in order to chatting about that race at all. Lovely. Thanks for your time today, Barry.
Cheers.
Thank you very much for joining us on this show. Remember to gamble responsibly, and we'll be back tomorrow to preview the Grand National.